Well, hello hyperspace, my name is Davontos and it's time to get hyped because this is some Modern Warfare remastered gameplay. However, in this video we're actually going to talk about the Call of Duty that's coming up in less than 10 days. Call of Duty World War II. Now this is actually going to be a little tips and tricks video, I guess, and a little advice video because some of you guys have actually never played a boots on the ground Call of Duty. If you don't own Modern Warfare Remastered, or if you never played other Call of Duties like Ghost and MW3 and so on, some people actually first started playing in Advanced Warfare, Black Ops 3, even Infinite Warfare, and if that's the case, then this video is for you, because I'm going to give you some handy-dandy tips and tricks on how to play Boots on the Ground game mode, because they play completely differently than Jetpack game mode. So let's actually get into this. The first off, I want to actually cover your playstyle, and the number one thing I should say is always check your corners. This is something that not a lot of people do in the advanced movement CODs, because you can easily fly away, and if anybody's hiding in a corner, you can obviously see them from above or so on. But back in the old days, there was something that we old school COD gamers used to call corner campers. And these people would actually sit in a corner and get maybe like 3 or 4 kills and then relocate to another corner. And then they would get maybe 3 or 4 kills again and then relocate and so on. And they would go unnoticed because nobody would check their corners. And these people go on like freaking 18, 19, 20 kill streaks because nobody's checking their corners. So, a bit of advice, because it is a boots on the ground game mode and your mobility is very limited, please check your corners. So, besides checking your corners, your playstyle will drastically change. We're actually going to go through each of the weapon classes, from assault rifles, submachine gun, shotguns, and all that stuff. We're going to cover each of these classes and see how they would actually change between old school CODs, or boots on the ground CODs, and advanced movement CODs. So, the playstyle, check your corners, and you actually want to fire from cover to cover depending on your weapon. So let's actually start off with the assault rifles. If World War II is going to be just like Call of Duty World at War, which I'm pretty sure it is aside from the vehicles, then you're going to have 2 types of assault rifles. The first one is semi-auto, basically like the M1 Garand, and the second is going to be full auto like the STG-44. So, these assault rifles basically play out like your typical assault rifle. Full auto assault rifles, aim down sights, stay in the front lines, down anybody in front of you, and then the semi-auto, well, they function just like your typical semi-auto assault rifle. Be accurate, be careful, down your targets really quickly with accurate shots. Semi-auto obviously aren't good at close range, which means you actually have to fire from cover. Now if you use the M1 Garand in, let's say, Black Ops 3 or Infinite Warfare, you can still, run around the battlefield with the M1 Garand, because if you're compromised, you can easily just fly away. But in boots on the ground game modes, you can't do that. So if you're using a semi-auto assault rifle, make sure you fire from cover, and you can't be as aggressive as the full auto assault rifle gunners. Now we're actually going to go over the submachine guns. Now back in the World at War days, submachine guns were dominant, and I hear that in World War II, submachine guns will also be dominant. Submachine guns, pretty standard submachine gun, close to medium range combat. One thing you always want to do, the submachine guns are the guys who usually check their corners. So, if you're going to a building, you're going to an alley, anywhere that has little spots for people to hide, always check your corners with the submachine guns, because they're the guys who can get the job done much faster than the assault rifle guys. So the submachine guns, stick close to the front lines, not too close, and you want to kind of keep your gunfights between medium and close range. But one thing you always have to keep in mind is always keep your submachine gun reloaded to its fullest. No empty magazines. And I say this because you're going to be staying within medium to close range gunfights. And in the close range is where you're going to find the shotgunners, which we're going to get to that next. But medium range, you can kind of compete with assault rifles, but because, submachine guns, they're weaker, you need more shots down range and all that stuff, you always want to keep a top-loaded magazine as much as possible. So after every kill or two, make sure you reload, and keep an eye on your ammo count, because you never know when you're going to have to wind up picking up another weapon if you don't have Scavenger equipped, if Scavenger is in the game. So back to the shotguns, as I mentioned before. Shotgun playstyle has drastically changed. In the jetpack game modes, you can just fly around the place, blasting everybody with your shotgun as soon as you get close to them. In the old school CODs, shotgunners weren't like that. I actually used to be a beast shotgun player back in the day, and now I'm more of like a support kind of guy. But back in the day, I was like that crazy guy who just ran around with shotgunners. And it's like a high risk, high reward kind of playstyle. Shotgunners, they are specifically at close range. I'm talking about like shotguns in general. I know World War II has that double-barreled shotgun with that sniper bullet or whatever, but basically shotguns in general, they're specifically made for close quarters, so you want to build your class loadout, or your, what it was called, your team, whatever it was called, guilds, I don't know. You want to build it specifically around close quarters, dead silence and steady aim, stuff that can actually help you in close-range gunfights. And because of this, you have to change how you maneuver around the map. You want to stay indoors, you want to stay in tight areas, and you really want to avoid long sidelines, preferably for MGs and snipers, because they will down you really quickly. And it's in these tight areas where you can actually pull off flanks and get behind the enemy, and you also could down some submachine gunners if you happen to run into them in these tight areas. So next up are the MG guys. Now the MG guys, they play differently, of course, as they used to in the jetpack games. In the jetpack games, MGs are basically like assault rifles, just with slower movement. In the old school ones, the MGs they're more of a defender. You move very slow, you're very big, powerful, very clunky, and because of that, your mobility is very limited, very hampered compared to everyone else. So you're going to be more of a fire support guy, and I would kind of say your playstyle has to be very campy if you're a machine gunner, an LMG gunner actually. And you don't want to camp in one spot, you just want to hold down a general area. You want to give the guys some fire support if they're moving forward, stand a back line, fire up. Basically like if you're playing Overwatch and you play as Zenyatta, that's what you kind of want to do. You want to stand up back and make sure everybody's protected and give them some fire support from the back. That's what an MG guy tends to do. And if you are going to advance forward, take caution because, your gun is very big, very clunky, and you actually won't have a lot of protection against close-range gunfights. And finally, we are going to cover the sniper rifles. Now, these are the guns that actually had a huge change. In the new school Call of Duties, everybody's all about running around and quick-scoping and all that stuff, and, well, I mean, it can be effective in old school Call of Duties, but like 90% of the time, the quick-scopers go, I don't know, maybe say get like 10, 15 kills, and they wind up getting killed about 20 or 30 times. If you want to be an effective sniper, and you're playing the old school style, you actually want to hide and camp. You want to hide in a spot where nobody can see you, or anybody, nobody really looks. Hide back there, pick off a couple of people, and if you're not spotted, stay there. If you think you're spotted, or if somebody takes you out, relocate and never go back to the same spot twice. You want to go to one spot, get a couple kills. If nobody sees you, fine, stay there the whole game. If somebody sees you and they take you out, you want to relocate to another sniper position and stay there. And don't go back to your old sniping spot unless you're 100% sure there are no enemies in that area. And surprisingly, doing this kind of sniping playstyle, like hiding in the mist and picking people off, you would surprisingly get like 20 or 30 something kills, and your character would probably die about, I'd say, less than 10 times, especially with enough practice. It is really effective. And surprisingly, old school Call of Duties, World War II, everything's all dirty, everything's all gritty. Camouflage plays a huge part in your playstyle. Now, I know this is by Sledgehammer Games, we're going to wind up getting some clown outfits or samurais or whatever, but, just keep in mind, camouflage plays a key factor in your playstyle. If you can, especially for you snipers and you shotgunners, because shotgunners tend to stand in the shadows and then pop out, take some people out, and then run to another closed area, while snipers tend to just like hide in the shadows. So those two guys, you want to stay camouflaged as best as you can. And that's basically about it. Just little handy tips and tricks for you guys who are purchasing World War II and if you've never played a Boots on the Ground COD. So if you like this video, punch that like button with a mighty force. You can follow me up on Twitter at DavantosMan. And as always, I'll see all of you in the next video. Have a nice day.